I'm beginning to understand that no one can save you but you. And I don't mean that in a sense of just discussing other people, but I mean anything outside of you. I mean that in the sense that nothing external can fix anything internal. If there's a gap that you have, if there's a hole that you have, if there's something that you lack internally, then there's nothing external that can fill that gap. Because the spirit is not of the world, and the world is not of the spirit. They're two completely different things. I think that anything outside of us that has an influence on our internal, that has an influence on the inside, it's what we allow to have an influence on the inside. It only has an influence because we allow it to have one. So I'm starting to understand that nothing external can fix anything internal. No matter what you do, if there's something that's lacking internally, there's nothing externally that can fill that gap, unless you allow something external to fill that gap. So I just really mean that in the sense, I think so often, even without realizing, we tend to lack things internally. We tend to not be where we want to be internally. We tend to have gaps internally. And instead of fixing those things internally, which we can do at any point in time, instead we look for things outside of us to fill those gaps. And I think that's a large part where addiction and different things like that come from. Because we're so focused on trying to fill the gap that we don't realize that we're just making it worse. I'm starting to understand it's kind of like trying to fix a flat tire with hot glue. Yes, it could work in the short term, in the very short term, but eventually you'll just have the same problem that you had before. And if you perpetually keep on trying to put the hot glue, eventually that hole will just become worse. So I'm starting to understand that it's important that we separate the spirit and the flesh. We separate the spirit and the world and recognize that they're not the same thing. You know, as children of God, we are of the spirit, not of the world. And I also mean that in the sense that the spirit controls the world and the world does not control the spirit. I mean that to say that if you substantiate something for yourself in the spirit, if you feel the holes that you have, if you feel the gaps that you have, and you allow yourself to be whole in the spirit, then you'll be whole in the flesh. If you allow yourself to be successful in the spirit, then you'll be successful in the flesh. And I've been quoting this Bible verse a lot, but it's really just impactful, I think, or something that's having great impact on me recently. Where it says, do not be conformed to the things of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I think that's exactly what it means. And a different Bible verse that says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and then everything else will be added onto you. So it's really understanding that it's about saving your spirit first. It's about focusing on the spirit. And I think as Christians, we often see it, or we often see the Bible as saying that, oh, we shouldn't want anything. You know, nothing of the world we should ever want, we should never want. And in the sense that we should never aspire for the things of this world. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think when the Bible says that we shouldn't want anything, it doesn't mean in the sense that we can't desire something, but rather that we shouldn't want in the sense that we lack it. We should want in the sense that we already have it. And it's a very paradoxical thing because I think that to desire is to not have, and to want something is to not have it. So it's about recognizing that anything that you want in the world is something you can give yourself right now. It's something that God can give you physically while you give it to yourself internally. It's about recognizing that you have so much power to control your internal state. Regardless of what it is, it's something that you can give yourself internally right now. Giving it to yourself internally to the point that you no longer want it externally. To the point that you're indifferent on whether you achieve or have that thing externally. You're indifferent on whether or not you have the thing in the world. And I think that in existing in that state, then we allow God's will to be done in our lives. We allow those things to be bestowed upon us in the physical world. I think that to desire is to not have. And to a deeper degree, it's almost saying that when you no longer want something and you exist in a state of having it, then you will have it externally just as much as internally. When you no longer care about having it externally, that's when you finally get it externally. And I think there's so many different examples of just that around the world or just in our daily lives, where you want something so badly that you don't have it. But the second you stop wanting it, the second you just exist in the sense of having it, that's when it's something that's finally yours. So I'm just starting to understand how important it is that we separate the external from the internal. We separate the flesh from the spirit. And we recognize that the flesh cannot heal the wounds of the spirit, but the spirit can heal the wounds of the flesh. So it's about focusing not on the things of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind, by the renewing of our spirit, by focusing on the spirit, rather than the things that are outside of us. I have a Bible verse that goes with the topic of this video pretty well. It's taken from Galatians 5, verse 16 to 17. And it says, "So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of your flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want." So I think this verse is telling us exactly what it is. That the Spirit and the flesh are not the same thing. And that when deciding which to focus on, it's always better to focus on the spirit. And I think that focusing on the spirit, really goes into the worldly sense, or the worldly viewpoint, that you should attract rather than chase. In the sense that I think if you give to yourself in the spirit, then you're allowing it to attract towards you, rather than chasing it in the world. Because once you have it in the spirit, it's no longer something that you want. It's just something that you have. It's no longer something that you care about having externally, because you give to yourself internally. So I'm just starting to understand how important it is that we focus not on the things of this world. We focus not around what we see, what we sense, but we focus on the things of the spirit, how we feel, how we think. Because I think if we're able to do that, then it'll no longer be something that we're chasing. And we shift from a degree of desire, a degree of lack, into a degree of abundance, into a degree of peace. So I just think, it's important that we just focus not on the things of this world. Thank you for watching. I hope you took something from this video. Have a great day.